Good morning. Couldn't sleep. Very seldom ever sleep anymore. When I do, it's maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then I'm up. But I got this. So I was sitting here drinking my coffee. I got to thinking about my childhood days. When I was young, very young, most kids were out playing. I sit in the house with the elderly folk. My cousins and family and friends made fun of me because of it, but I always enjoyed sitting and listening, looking and observing the elderly. I enjoyed hearing their stories of their younger years, how they grew up, what they had to do to survive, things they done, things they said. Titled this one, Stop, Look, and Listen. A lot of the heritage, especially the family heritage, is done passed away. People don't even know who they're kin to anymore. They don't know what their kinfolk, their neighbors and friends went through when they were growing up in this fast-paced world that we live in. I used to sit and listen to people like Harold Claypool, Mendel Coles, Glenn Bailey, and I could go on naming elderly folk that I grew up under down in around Bucksville, Kentucky. And I'd sit in there in the house with my grandparents and neighbors and kinfolk and stuff. They'd talk about plowing their gardens with their horses and mules, tobacco crops, cornfields. They'd talk about how far they would have to walk to carry a gallon bucket of water so that they could do the dishes or make meals or mop floors, laundry, whatever. They'd talk about family and friends, things that were done, things that were said. I miss those days. I miss being able to sit and listen. I miss being able to spend time with a lot of the elderly that's done gone on that I thought so much of when I was growing up. I was marked as an outlaw. I was marked as a little heathen. I was marked as trouble. People would cross the streets just to avoid me. But there was always a few houses down and around Bucksville. The Coleses, the Johnsons, Belchers, Lowrys, Powers, Watsons, that I could sit and not even be noticed at times. But I would hear them talk about how they grew up, how they would take, or their moms would take, aunts and grandmas would take old feed sacks and flour sacks and make dresses for the girls, shirts for the boys, take old wash rags and wash towels and make uh, house shoes. My Aunt Anna used to do that for us kids. I loved them things. Wasn't made out of nothing but old wore out wash rags or dish towels. But it meant the world to me every time she'd make me a pair of them. When the kids were out running up and down the gravel roads, I was sitting in there in a corner somewhere, out of the way best I could, and I listened to them. People today need to stop, look, and listen. While they still have a few elderly left, while they still have a few that's willing to teach them and explain to them who they're kin to, what they need to do to survive. You know, we've been in the house for pretty much a week now. Been blessed to be able to have power, been blessed to have food and heat and stuff. But I know many that haven't been that blessed. I'm grateful that I learned how to survive just by listening. Trying to stay back out of the way and listen. I'm not really sure why the Lord put this on me, but they used to talk about planting gardens and how they fed their families that way, killing hogs and cows for the meat. I helped do that when I was young. My granddaddy and my uncles used to get together and they'd start early on a Saturday morning. They'd take and go down to the hog lot and pick out 3 or 4 big old hogs. They'd kill them. They'd have the water boiled in an old part of a 55-gallon drum, barrel, whatever you want to call it, with some chains laid across it. They'd cut the old hog's throat and let it bleed out. Then they'd lay him across them chains and they'd roll him back and forth in that hot boiling water. Then they'd take their knives and stuff and scrape the hair off of the hog. And then they'd peel the skin off and start cutting up the meat. Pork chops, bacon, tenderloin, meat to make sausage. And if it's a cow, they would cut them up too for beef and steaks and hamburger meat and whatever, roast. We spent the biggest portion of the day cutting up meat and taking it to the house, and the women folk would start either grinding it up for sausage or hamburger meat, or they'd cut it up and get it ready to freeze. Some meats they would can. Ain't much of that done anymore. Yeah, they used to can meat, just like green beans and corn, carrots, onions, whatever. But they would talk. Women folk would talk and they'd try and teach the younger girls how to do these things. And they would tell stories about when they grew up, how that their mama and grandma and great-grandma and aunties and cousins taught them how to make pillowcases, tablecloths, aprons, dresses, blouses, skirts. Ain't much of that going on anymore. Everybody's got to the point they say and they believe, why, it's just cheaper to go to Wally World and buy it. Yeah, maybe, but it don't last as long. It don't last nowhere as long as the meats and the fruits and the vegetables that the old folks used to put up in their coolers, in their smoke sheds, their salt boxes, their cellars, in their barns under straw. A lot of knowledge of how to do stuff, how to fix stuff, went away because kids were more worried about playing Ring Around the Roses and uh, Red Rover, let Jimmy come over and tag and hide and seek. Nowadays they too worried about playing video games, keeping their nose stuck in a screen. People, you need to stop, look, and listen. If you've got any elderly left in your family, I don't have that much. On my daddy's side, I'm the oldest male left of the Belchers. Then there's my brother Johnny, my cousin Freddie, and my brother Jojo. I got two aunts on my daddy's side left. On my mama's side, I got one uncle. I don't know my cousins on her side because, I mean, I know them, I just don't remember a lot of their names because I wasn't raised around them. They was raised around Illinois and Ohio. I got to see them throughout my life, but I didn't really get to hang with them enough to learn them. I got one Uncle Toby left, as far as I know, and my mama on her side. I got my Aunt Linda and my Aunt Judy on my daddy's side. And like I said, out of the four Belcher boys, of course I got one half cousin. His daddy and my daddy were half brothers. He's older than me by 3 or 4 years, if that. But out of the Belchers, there's only four of us boys left, and I'm the oldest. And by my lot of time, according to the good Lord, I don't have much longer. I'm hoping I do, but you never know. People don't get together like they used to. Used to, everybody went to Granny's on Saturday night, sometimes even on Friday night. But you could generally well count on Saturday nights. Go to Granny's, and the older ones would play High Nine and Rook and Crazy Age, Rummy. Kids would play checkers and chess, aggravation, which was marbles, and games outside. But I always liked to sit, if it wasn't nothing but over in a corner in the floor, and listen. I wasn't raised around my family that much. So whenever I did get a chance to be around them, I took time to listen and to learn. Same way with some of my neighbors that took time to spend a little time with me and try and teach me right from wrong. And I sure do appreciate that. Miss Annie Coles, Miss Annie Mae Johnson, Miss Ada Mae Watson. Of course, I still have my Mama Faye Claypool still out there, still praying for me. That means the world to me. And I still have a few others still left around that remembers me from my wild and woolly childhood days that most people told me to get away. But as I'm trying to say is, we need to teach our children how to get along, how to listen. I'm sure glad I did when I was growing up. I listened to the elderly. I listened to how that they fought for what they had. They worked for what they had. Their life wasn't easy. How they used to walk a long ways just to get to a store or get to clean water. How they'd go out and cut firewood, bust it up and bring it home. How they'd get coal brought to them from the coal mines. And I'd done some of that in my younger days. I used to help James Earl Boyd haul coal. It's not an easy job, scooping it off them trucks. Children today, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to throw stones at nobody, but children today don't know how lucky they got it because they've never really had to work for anything. Most kids today's had everything handed to them. They were put through school and everything paid for them. They didn't have to walk to school. Either rode the bus or mom and daddy bought them a car or a truck to drive. I used to have to walk to school. And most folks' stories about I walked a mile or more to school, and most of it was uphill. I done that in the snow as well as in the good weather. So I kind of knew what they were talking about when they were talking about how they used to walk to them old one-room schoolhouses, and then they got to talking about the newer model schools. Youngins, you don't know how blessed you really are. And a lot of kids today, reason why they turn out the way they turn out is because the parents tried their best to teach them and they didn't listen, or the parents were so busy working they didn't have time to teach them. And I ain't putting no blame on nobody, and I ain't trying to put nobody down. I'm just saying how it is. A lot of kids will give everything till they reach their high school years and graduate. And then they turn 18. Then they're thrown out into the real world and they don't know how to handle it, because they've always had everything just handed to them. They didn't know how to pay for a light bill, water bill, gas bill. They didn't know how to pay for insurance, bank notes, because it was always took care for them. I listened and I learned. Yeah, I lived a very rough life growing up, and I'm not saying that bragging by no means. At the age of 13, I left home, and I was on my own till I married my wife. At the age of a little bit before I turned 23. I was 22 when we got married. So I know what it's like to live rough. I know what it's like to do without. I was working. Daddy had me milking before I ever started school. And then he had me helping in the backer fields, hay fields. I wasn't even big enough to drive. He'd put me in a vehicle, truck, tractor, whatever. He'd get it started, stand me up in the seat, get it going, he'd jump out, and I'd stare as they went down the roads. We'd get almost to an end, he'd jump back on, or jump back in, depending if we was on a tractor or a truck, and get it turned around, or get it stopped before we went to the barn. I know what hard work is. I've done it all my life. A lot of kids ain't had to work. If you ain't had to work, I'm proud for you. And I don't mean that sarcastic by no means. But if more kids and more grown-ups too would take the time to stop and listen to the elderly while they're still here, this world would be a lot better place. There was a time when neighborhoods worked together. Somebody was sick, people went and helped them, and they didn't expect nothing in return for it. Nowadays, you can say, well, let's go help old so and so. He's laid up in the bed and can't take care of his cattle and crops. Well, how much am I going to get paid for it? Well, I ain't going to do it. Man, if I'd have said that when I was growing up, I'd have even less teeth than I got now, and I ain't got none, hardly. A few broken pieces, but I'd have lost them a lot sooner. We used to get together and we'd help people get their cattle fed, get their milk cows milk, get the crops in, took care of. We didn't ask for nothing in return other than just friendship, because that was the thing to do. You don't see it going on nowadays. Very seldom. Very seldom. Somebody was sick, the women folk would go sit with them. They'd help take care of their house. They'd help make meals, clean the house, take care of the kids. And then they'd come home and take care of their own. Wasn't nothing ever said. Wasn't nothing ever expected other than just friendship. Ain't much of that going on anymore. I used to sit as a little bitty fella, even before I started school. What little school I went to. I sit back and I listen to them talk about fixing harness for their horses and their mules because they couldn't afford to go buy any. Fixing their barns because they couldn't afford to build new ones. Fixing their old tractors, their old pull along behind plows and discs and rakes for the tractors and the ones that they used to use with the horses and the mules, because they couldn't afford to buy new stuff. They had to fix what they had in order to survive. I listened. And I enjoyed it. I used to listen to old fellas talk about stories of their kinfolk and things they went through. They'd talk, not often, but they would talk sometimes about being in the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, Marines, whatever. They wouldn't talk very much, but they would talk some to somebody that they knew had went through the same things. They kept most of that away from their families. But a lot of times they didn't see me because I was sitting in a corner somewhere or behind a chair or couch or something listening while the other kids were out playing. Well, other kids were playing, swimming in the water holes and swinging off the ropes, or playing in the barns, throwing eggs and corn cobs or whatever. I was working right alongside of the grown-ups. And when I worked with them, I listened. And they would tell how they went through crops that wouldn't even make enough to pay for selling them. But they raised their families on them and they survived. They'd talk about having to take care of an old cow or horse or whatever because they were sick. Talked about old home remedies that they used. Women folk would talk about home remedies that they would use on the kids and grandkids and whatever that were sick or ailing. A lot more listening was going on. This world would be a lot better place. Stop, look, and listen and learn. There was a time when people prayed to God, whether it was about their crops, they would pray. When you want me to sit and where you want me to sit it this year. Or if they were going to buy land or home or some kind of piece of machinery, they'd pray to God for guidance and leadership. Before they took a wife or a husband, they would pray for God to send them the one that He wanted them to have. That's the reason why so many marriages of the old days lasted. Because they prayed for their mates. They didn't go out and just grab up the first thing that excited them. I learned a long time ago by listening to the elders, beauty's only skin deep, ugly's to the bone. I know many young ladies that people run around, oh, she's beautiful, she's beautiful. About 5 or 10 minutes they're running around yelling, oh, she's ugly, she's ugly. Because her personality, her attitude. Same way with the boys. Then I've seen some that, and I don't mean this disrespectfully by no means, I've seen some that's boys or girls that was, like me, pretty homely looking, that were beautiful people because of their personality, because of their heart, and because of their manners and whatsoever. They were good, beautiful people inside and out. Looks ain't everything. We all get old, we all get wrinkled, we all get baggy and saggy, or we get to be nothing but skin and bones. I listened how some talked about when they lost their mates, their husband or their wife, how that they sit beside them. They fed them, they clothed them, they bathed them, they give them their medicine. Plumb on up to when they took their very last breath. You don't see much of that no more. You get where somebody can't use you, they either walk away and leave you, or they stick you in some old nursing home and forget about you. A lot of my kinfolk I don't even see unless I go to a funeral. About the only time I see them. I used to really love to enjoy it. We used to have fish fries, squirrel fries, rabbit fries, where everybody in the neighborhood would get together. Ice cream suppers is what we used to call them, some of them. We'd make homemade ice cream. We'd get together at Granny's on Saturdays, play high nine, rook, crazy eight, rummy, checkers, chess. My Uncle Thurston, my Aunt Judy, my Aunt Linda Kay, my daddy, my Uncle Randall, they used to pick and grin. Bluegrass music, country music, some old 50 and 60, early 70 rock, but mostly gospel, bluegrass gospel and gospel, because that's what Granny liked. And they'd play plumb way on up in the mornings. Sometimes they'd start Saturday afternoon, and it'd be daylight Sunday morning before they quit. Everybody in the neighborhood come. Everybody was welcomed. You don't see that going on anymore. And then they wonder why. Wonder why there's so much hatred in the world. They wonder why there's so much meanness in the world. They wonder why there's so many lazy kids in the world. People don't stop, look, and listen. Used to get together and go to people's houses that couldn't get up and go to church for medical reasons, sickness, or just plain didn't have the money to get up and go. We'd go to their houses and hold Bible studies. Preachers would come in and preach in their living rooms or out in their yards or backyards, hog lots, whatever. Don't see much of that anymore. Used to hold tent revivals in people's yards, people's pastures, hog lots and stuff. You don't see much of that anymore. People used to pray, Lord, show me how to raise my kids. They would pray for the Lord's guidance when to help them with their teething, when to break them from their diapers. They used to pray to the Lord for leadership and guidance and teaching them about the Lord and their Heavenly Father. We teach them about the love and the respect of the church, how to act, how to dress. My grandmother used to tell the women folk, her daughters, her nieces, her granddaughters, and so forth, if you don't want the men folk talking about your goodies, then put you some clothes on and hide them goodies. Don't let them hang out for the world to see. And she used to tell her sons, grandsons, and nephews, if you don't want the women folk talking about y'all's goodies, put you a belt on and keep your breeches up and keep them zipped. Yeah, I used to stop, look, and listen. I may not act like it throughout the years, but I did. I enjoyed sitting and listening to the old folks talking about hog killing. I got to do some hog killing. It's hard work, a lot of work to it. Got to help kill a few cattle for the meat to put in the deep freezers and the smoke shacks and the cellars. Got to help raise gardens with my grandma before she passed away. Got to help my Aunt Anna and Aunt Judy and Linda Kay. We used to go fishing a lot. We'd all get together and go fishing. We'd get a whole bunch of fish and clean them, and we'd divide them out amongst everybody that was there. Some got froze and some got canned, just like canning vegetables. But we would talk. The old folks would talk about their stories, and then they would talk to the younger generations, trying to put them on the right path. And Lord, I wish I'd have listened better than what I listened. I heard them talking, but there's a difference in hearing them talk and actually listening. If you listen, it sticks with you. If you just hear them talk, it goes in one ear and out the other. There's a difference. This world would be a lot better place. Preachers would take time to sit down and talk to the children and explain stuff to them. And they used words that they could understand. They didn't throw them watermelon words out there, or them, like I like to say, them Dollar General store words. They used the 1-cent stores or the 5 and dime store words. Just good old plain English, good old plain country folk talk. I used to go to church with my kinfolk when they would ask. I'd listen. May not act like it, but I listened. I just wish I'd have listened better. I wouldn't have had to went through a lot of the heartaches and troubles, trials, and tribulations I went through that I brought on my own self. Did nobody bring them on me. I brought them on myself. Anybody says any difference, uh-uh. We go through our own troubles, trials, and tribulations because we put ourselves in those positions. Now, yeah, I had people that took advantage of me in several different ways, and some I won't talk about. Not because it's too personal, but because it's too vulgar. And I won't bring that up because there's too many people that still can, that's still alive, that would know. And I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings right now. And it would. It would tear some people's hearts right out of their chest if they knew how I was treated and who I was treated by. We're going to leave it at that. I used to go and sit and listen and drink coffee even when I was a teenager and even when I hit my 20s, and I'd been married for a little while. I'd go and sit with the elderly, sit and drink coffee with them, and I'd listen to them talk about their stories of how they grew up and stuff they went through, how their families were doing and things that they were going through. Some of you kids out there, I remember when y'all were born. I remember what your folks went through to get you here. If you got a mom and a dad that cares about you, be grateful. You got grandparents that cared about you, be thankful, be grateful. Not everybody does or did. Take the time to listen. Stop, look around, and listen. And you'll learn. You'll learn a lot more than you think you will. Not only in your homes, on your jobs, in school, most of all in church. Take the time to listen. That preacher, if he's preaching for the right reason, he's not up there just running off the mouth for the fun of it. And I'm speaking from experience. Listen. You got a good Sunday school teacher? Listen. Preacher up there preaching? Listen. He's preaching his heart out. He's preaching what God is placing on his heart and his mind. And he's doing it for the love of the congregation and the community. He's doing it for the love of the Lord Jesus Christ and God Almighty. If he's doing it for any other reason, he's doing it for the wrong reason, and he's walking on unholy ground. For a preacher that's preaching because God saved him, God called him, he's in it for the outcome, not the income. He's not in it for the money. He's in it for the saving of souls. He's in it for the teaching and the preaching and the education of God's will, ways, and commandments. Yeah, they used to talk about coon hunting, rabbit hunting, deer hunting, fox hunting, squirrel hunting, dove hunting, and several other types of hunting and fishing. I used to love to sit and listen to their stories. I learned from them. I learned a few tricks of the trade that helped me. And I learned some stuff not to do because it was going to get me in trouble if I done it. This world would be a whole lot better if people would just take the time to stop, look, and listen. In their homes, in school, on their jobs, and most of all, in church. God bless you.